Welcome back. This is Reading with Will. I am Will, and I read. Today's book that we will be talking about is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So let me just go ahead and say, I am not gonna spoil the ending of this book or like the big plot points because so good. I was going crazy reading this book. Everything was unexpected, but some things were expected, but you were like, nah, that's not gonna happen, but it happens, and you're like, oh my god. And as soon as things started happening, I was like, I need to read it again. Yeah, I won't say nothing. Okay, let me go ahead and tell you what this book's about. Enter the players. There are 7 of us then. 7 bright, young things with wide, precious futures ahead of us. Until that year, we saw no further than the books in front of our faces. On the day Oliver Marks is released from jail, the man who put them there is waiting at the door. Detective Colburn wants to know the truth, and after 10 years, Oliver is finally ready to tell it. A decade ago, Oliver is one of 7 young Shakespearean actors at Delcher Classical Conservatory, a place of keen ambition and fierce competition. In this secluded world of firelight and leather-bound books, Oliver and his friends play the same roles on stage and off. Hero, villain, tyrant, temptress, ingenue, and extra. But in their 4th and final year, good-natured rivalries turn ugly, and on opening night, real violence invades the students' world of make-believe. In the morning, the 4th years find themselves facing their very own tragedy and their greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police, each other, and themselves that they are innocent. Basically, let's sum it up. 7 thespians, 1 is murked, 1 dies. So what happened? Dark academia excellence. So originally, I was wanting to get into like the dark academia genre. And this, after I read my favorite books, The Poppy War, knew I was gonna read If We Were Villains, because I've seen so many things on TikTok say it's so good. And I was like, okay, so I bought it. But after I finished The Poppy War, I had to read Babel, R.F. Kuang's only other book. And so I read it, and it was amazing. And it's also dark academia, so that was my first one. And then my friend gave me The Secret History, which is like the OG dark academia book. And so I read that too. And then I took a little break from the genre, broadened my horizons just a tad bit more, and then I came back to it. I'm gonna get into the characters of the book. So our main protagonist, the person whose point of view this is from, is Oliver. Oliver Marks is basically always cast in these roles as like sidekick. He sees himself as the least talented of the group, never gets the main role, and ultimately he's the one that goes to jail for the crime. On this channel, we love him. We love Oliver. Great character, written so dynamically. And then there's James. He is described as the prince. Everyone describes him as a prince. He's heroic. He always tries to do the right thing. He always gets really big roles. He's Oliver's best friend. They've been roommates for 4 years. There's Meredith. She's like the femme fatale, bombshell. Everyone wants to be her, or they want to be with her. She's a ginger, to put into perspective, and she dates Richard. And Richard is an asshole. I hate Richard. He is always getting the biggest roles. The teachers are obsessed with him. The students are obsessed with him. I don't like him at all. And the characters describe him. We hate him, but we also love him. Ugh. And then there is Ren, who is Richard's cousin. They're like, couldn't be more different. She is like the sweetest person ever. And she's kind of like your girl next door. And there's Philippa, who is the queen. Another character that on this channel we stand. Philippa, underdog. She always gets overlooked, always. They just put her into spots. She's a lot like Oliver in that like sense of how her roles get chosen. But she's definitely the glue to the entire group. Then there's Alexander, who is a gay, druggie, always cast as the villain. And yeah, always doing drugs of some kind. The writing for these characters makes them seem just so real. Like I could read just these characters doing absolutely nothing, because that's how dynamic and interesting they are, and they're so likable for the most part. Great characters. Another character I should mention is Shakespeare, because he is always present in these stories. All 7 of the thespians are obsessed with him, and they speak in Shakespearean dialect throughout the entire book. And it's such a change from what I'm used to reading. So the setting, it takes place at the Delcher Classical Conservatory, all art school, basically a giant castle that they live in and do all their studying by the fireplace in the big library. And it's so, I just love the aesthetic of it. It's in Illinois and it takes place in like the late 90s, early 2000s time. I'm saying slight spoiler because I said I'm not gonna spoil big things or anything, and I'm not. Just like slight spoilers about more than what you're gonna get from the synopsis. There is a big love story that happens that you're like, it's not gonna happen. And it happens. And it's my favorite part of the book. And it's so beautiful, and I love the characters, and I will never get over it. And it's honestly makes you feel every possible human emotion, every single one at once within 50 pages. And the ending of this book, this is what I'm gonna say about the ending. It's ambiguous. It's ambiguous. How dare they? But also it's so poetic. And I wouldn't change it, but I would, because it could be looked at different lenses of what happens. And the last paragraph, the last sentence, game changer. I want another book. I want another book. I know we're not gonna get one. I know we're not, but I want one so badly. Some standout quotes for me were, "You can justify anything if it's done poetically enough." And then, which is like, oh, okay. And then, "But this is how a tragedy like ours or King Lear's breaks your heart, by making you believe that the ending might still be happy until the very last minute." Oh, it's just some light foreshadowing. And then Detective Colburn asks Oliver once he finally gets out of prison, he's like, "Do you blame Shakespeare for any of it?" And Oliver says, "I blame him for all of it." Okay. So my first recommendation is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. It's gonna be a classic when we're all older. Like, it's already kind of like a classic, but OG Dark Academia. It is very interesting. It's very like character study driven, and it's a pretty thick book. Like, it doesn't look it, but it's like 500 pages. I didn't like it as much as If We Were Villains, but these two, there is an ever-going clash about which is better. But definitely read them both to see what you like. I would probably recommend reading If We Were Villains first, and if you like the aesthetic and you like the dynamic, morally gray characters, then definitely check out The Secret History. I feel like you sit with the characters longer in this. I didn't like the characters as much in this book as I did in If We Were Villains, but I mean, that's just my taste. It was so well written anyways, but I just felt it was kind of slow. But when I say that, like, I wish this one was slower so that I had more time to spend with the characters. So I'm not gonna say anything bad about it, but check that one out. My next recommendation, I have to recommend the one and only Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is my favorite author of all time. And I will make a video about the Poppy War and probably this one as well. The author is a genius. Simply, I love her so much. She has a new book coming out this year. I have already pre-ordered it. I can't wait. But Babel is like about translating, and it's historical fiction. British Empire taking kids from other countries that speak their native language and then using them because they know the language to be able to take more and conquer more. And it's all about like colonialism and the power of translation. And it is such an interesting read. I'll show you a little picture of her. She researched everything to a T. My brain grew reading this. I feel like I'm not smart enough to read it, but she does such a great job of putting things into perspective. And I think it's a must read for literally everybody. As I said, recommendations, Babel's Secret History. This song it reminds me of is Buzzcut Season by Lorde. So do with that information what you will. Definitely a 5 out of 5 stars for this book. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's so easy to get into, especially for first-time readers. Like, it's just such a cool aesthetic, and it can really hook anybody. I've heard a lot of people say like old theater kids really gravitate toward this book, and I was up until like high school. But definitely check it out if you like murder mystery, if you like love stories, if you like dark academia. This book is for you. But thanks for watching this video. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's Will Mobs, WILLMOBS. And stay tuned for next week's video. Bye.